Hello, this is Gio, and what you're looking at here are the game controllers for my son's PS3 games. They're very similar to the newer PS4 games, but we don't have that console yet. But these things are really handy. They kind of conform to your shape. But unfortunately, this one right here has some problems. If you look at the little thumb controller here, it doesn't kind of spring back really quickly. And so like this one works perfectly. And so although it kind of still works, you kind of have to physically bring it back into place. And so that's kind of annoying. And I'll show you how to fix that today. Okay, so just full disclosure here, this is not the best game controller in the world. It has a lot of problems. As you can see, there's some plastic parts missing. This one has this little plastic part here. These are kind of missing. Also, the case doesn't hold down. There's some plastic hold downs that are snapped off, but it still plays well if we can just get this controller, thumb controller, working. And so these things you could, I mean, they're not cheap. You can probably get them used for 20 bucks, new 40 bucks or more, but just for a few bucks you could actually repair this thumb controller. And what it is you have this 3-pin analog device or stick, which I actually got this on the internet. Just looked up 3-pin analog controller for PS3, and this is what it is. And this is actually inside and actually controls the stick, and this little part is right on here, and it kind of controls it. And this was only actually $3, actually $2.99. And so I shipped it up, ordered it after about 2 weeks, got it, and you can install these and have a working controller. So the first thing to do is just turn it upside down, and there are 5 screws that you remove, and I have just a small little screwdriver, so we're going to remove those. Okay, so with the screws removed, you could just very carefully remove the back of the key. These little buttons get removed, and just put this back piece to the side. And inside, right away, you see the battery. This little battery is held by 2 little plastic parts that just easily fall off. And so when you move this out, these just kind of come right off. Like that, you see. So just be aware that they'll possibly pop off, and you want to unplug the battery, and you do that right here. Just like that, and then put that to the side. So these battery holders are just going to come off anyway, so I'm just going to take these off, put them to the side, just like that. Next thing, you want to get the circuit board off, and it comes off with just 1 screw, which is right here, and I'll probably have to change the size of my screwdriver. Okay, so with your screwdriver, just remove the 1 screw, put it aside, and now very easily, now you could kind of use the thumb buttons on the other side to help push it up. But when you take this off, everything, these buttons are going to come off, these buttons are going to come off, and everything's going to kind of come apart simultaneously. I want to work out these buttons, just like that. Just like that. It all comes up in one piece. Now when you do this, be careful with the back end. Here, I'll put this down right now. Now try to leave this as it is. These buttons here could kind of fall off. These little rubber things come off. This little piece here is just a little piece that kind of glows, that makes the lights here. And this is just free floating, so if that comes off, you can... Now all these parts can come back on, but it's a lot easier if they don't fall off in the first place. So with this, just like that, just put it aside. Try not to lose any parts. And we're going to focus with the board here. Okay, so now here comes the real fun part. We're going to take the board with all the parts, kind of flip it over. and you can see there's some circuitry and stuff like that. One of which, there's two plugs. I don't know if you can zoom in here. One's right here, and there's like a little ribbon plug right here. So we're going to take both of these off, kind of use your nail for this white one. See if you can get in there. Or maybe, I don't like plugging wires, but this one just comes right off. So you can pull that wire, and now you can see the little ribbon, the little ribbon cord. And this, you're just going to kind of pull out from its socket very carefully. If you could see what I'm doing, you just like that. And this will be plugged back in. You could just plug it back in as well. But just be careful, remove this whole thing, put it aside. And this is what you're left with. You're left with the little thumb controllers and the circuit board. Now, so remembering the one that's broken, it's this one right, well, yeah, it's this one right here. It's kind of popping up now that they're stuck. But with nothing around it, it might work a little bit better. But you're going to remove the little covers and you just pull those straight off. And you can kind of see they're shaped such that they just go back on kind of one way. So just put those aside. Actually, I'll do them with both, just get them out of the way. And again, this is your analog, as you can see here, just like this. It's the same little thing, but the new one works a whole lot better than the old one. Okay, so there does require a little bit of soldering talent. So you will need to desolder all these little connections. Let's see. So there's, I don't know how many there are. There's probably about 10 connections or so. So we desolder each one of these and then remove the old analog controller. And then you're just going to replace this in and then solder it back up. So if you don't have any soldering skills, you may need to brush up on some soldering techniques first. But if you're used to soldering and desoldering, then you're good to go. I like to just use a nice soldering iron and some desoldering ribbon or braid to get the solder off. There's other things like little suction devices that you could help do that, but I find the braid to work pretty well. So I'm first going to take little snips and snip the little wires down to size a bit. Okay, so it wasn't that easy getting this thing off. I actually had to use my little suction and then actually even just break it apart before I got it off. But I did get it off without damaging the board, and the new component fits in really well. So I'm going to start soldering it back in. Okay, so now that I got the component on, it's all in there nice. Oops, that was the other one. So this one works very nicely. Okay, now we just reverse the whole procedure. So we start with, let's see, what do we start with? We first start with this component and we plug in the ribbon tape. And you can just hold this down and just very slightly, gently, make sure I got it in the right place. Get in the ribbon tape. And then plug in this little plug here. My fingers are too big for this. Can you see that where I'm doing here? There you go, just like that. Okay, so with all that in place, the next thing you do is put back the little thumb control pads. And again, they only go in one direction. Just like that. And then you flip it upside down. Just like that. Now it's time to put everything back in the upper case, and hopefully nothing fell out. Again, if things fall out like these, they just slip back on. Just like that. If these pads go, they just slip back on, so no worries. And just hold it carefully and just sort of lay it in as best you can get the thumb pads through the little holes. Just like that, and just so it's kind of there. Now the tricky part with this is getting these number 2 buttons. There's 2 little slots, like this little rail here, rail there, and they kind of just fit in the slot. And if you look at this little white pad, that white pad is depressed by the number 1 button, so it has to go far enough down so the 1 button can actually depress that little pad. So when everything's in place, you should be able to hit number 2s, and the 1s should play pretty well too. Now you go ahead and put back in that single screw. To hold that in place. Oops, that came off. Okay, next for the battery. Take the battery. The battery plug only goes in one direction, so if it doesn't go in one way, try the other way. So you just go ahead and slip that in just like that. Put the little saddles back in place. You could switch these off so you don't have to remember which one goes where. Just like that. And then, oops, go ahead and put the battery in place. Hold it down. Okay, and lastly, the top case, or in this case the bottom case. Now the trick with this is make sure you depress the number 2 buttons as you lower this in so they kind of fit underneath the plastic. And just kind of wiggle it in very gently. Make sure the number 2 buttons are underneath, and everything should shut nicely. 1 buttons are working, 2 buttons, all the other buttons are good. And now we'll just put back the 5 screws. And there you go. It's all put back together. It works. Everything's so there you go. I hope my kid likes this. So I'll see you next time. Hope this helped. Bye bye.